Good evening, everyone. My name is Emma Sholl, and I'm an attorney at Legal Aid Society. And I'm here this evening with my colleague, Allison Jones, who is also an attorney in our Nashville office. And we are here this evening to talk about TennCare renewals. So first I'll talk about Legal Aid Society. So we are a 501c3. We are a nonprofit law firm that provides representation in civil matters for low-income individuals and their families. Our mission is to advance, defend, and enforce the legal rights of low-income and vulnerable people in order to secure for them the basic necessities of life. We have 8 offices across Middle Tennessee, and we practice in a lot of areas, including bankruptcy, education, employment, family law, health law, housing, immigration, mortgage foreclosure, public benefits, and tax. So before we get started today, I did want to give the disclaimer that the information provided in our presentation this evening cannot take the place of legal advice. Each case is different and needs individual attention. So what we'll be talking about today is general information and not legal advice tailored to your own TennCare enrollment. So TennCare is Tennessee's Medicaid program. It provides health insurance for low-income children and some adults. As of May 2023, 1.7 million Tennesseans were enrolled in TennCare. This is about 20% of Tennesseans across the state have TennCare, and about 46% of newborns born in Tennessee have TennCare. So this is a significant health insurance program in the state of Tennessee. In order to be eligible for TennCare, you must be within a certain category of people, which I will discuss in the next slide. You must also meet financial limits, both for your monthly income and for your savings, or what is called resources. You must have a social security number or have a pending application for a social security number. You must be a citizen or a qualifying immigrant, and you must be a resident of Tennessee. In order to be eligible for TennCare, you must fit within one of these categories. So children under age 19 can be eligible for TennCare. Children under age 21 can be eligible if their family has very high medical bills. Parents or caretakers of minor children can be eligible for TennCare. Pregnant people can be eligible. Individuals who are in active treatment for breast or cervical cancer can be eligible for TennCare. Individuals receiving supplemental security income or individuals that used to receive SSI, some of them can be eligible for TennCare. And finally, individuals who are in medical institutional settings or who need nursing facility level care at home can be eligible for TennCare. So why we are here this evening is to talk about an important change that is happening within the next 12 months. And to talk about this change, we need to also talk about what's happened for the last 3 years with TennCare. So beginning in March of 2020, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the public health emergency that was declared, TennCare could not stop most people's TennCare health insurance because of the special rules surrounding the public health emergency. So what this meant is for the past 3 years, many people have just retained their TennCare coverage, and TennCare has not checked to see if these people are still eligible. So people have had this 3-year period where they have been still enrolled in TennCare without an eligibility check. So now the COVID public health emergency, this special rule has ended. So again, TennCare has to restart this process of checking everyone's eligibility. And the way that TennCare is doing this is that they are sending a paper packet called a renewal packet in the mail to be completed by the families and the enrollees and turned in. They are also using information that they may already have in their system or in the system of other governmental agencies to auto renew people's TennCare health insurance. And the reason that this is so important is because if you currently have TennCare and you don't complete the renewal process, you could lose your health insurance coverage. So, what do we know about this process so far? So this process started, this renewal redetermination process started just a couple months ago. And so far, we have the data just for April 2023. So, what we know so far is that in April 2023, 80,000 TennCare enrollees were due for redetermination and renewal. So the good news is 18,864 got this packet in the mail, returned it, and were approved. Another 24,802 people were auto renewed, which means that there was information based in the system that was enough for them to be auto renewed. They didn't have to fill out this packet and turn it in. However, the very concerning and bad news is that 515 people failed to return the renewal packet and they were terminated. Furthermore, 2,230 people returned that initial packet, but then when TennCare asked for additional information or verifications, they didn't provide those, and then those people were also terminated. Lastly, 7,383 people turned in their packets, but were found that they were ineligible. So for whatever reason, these 7,000 plus people did not meet the income or maybe category eligibility, and they're just no longer eligible. So out of the 26,247 people that did return the packet, around 72% of those were deemed still to be eligible for TennCare. But as we talked about on the last slide, there were 23,745 people that either did not return the packet or the verifications. And this is the group of people that this is very concerning, because for these people, they still could be eligible for TennCare. They could meet the income rules, meet the category rules. They could still meet all the rules to be eligible, but the reason that they were denied is because they failed to return the paperwork. And this could be for a lot of reasons. It could be that the paperwork didn't reach their residence. They could have moved in the last 3 years, and that's why they didn't receive it. It could be that they have a disability or an intellectual disability. They didn't understand the paperwork and they didn't know how to fill it out. It could be that there was a language barrier and they couldn't understand the paperwork and didn't know how to fill it out. So our goal of our presentation today is just to spread awareness about this process, and then also, provide information about what you can do if you currently have TennCare and are still eligible and want to keep it, and what to do if you get one of these renewal packets. So just the basics of renewal. So TennCare is required by federal law to check eligibility every 12 months. And this process is called renewal. Sometimes it's called redetermination. So renewal applies to anyone who receives benefits through TennCare. And TennCare programs include Cover Kids, Medicare Savings Programs, and the Katie Beckett program. So the Medicare Savings Programs are programs for seniors or disabled persons. They have Medicare, but this is a TennCare program that pays for their monthly Medicare premium. And these programs are called QMB, SLMB, or QI. And so this process, even though it's called a Medicare Savings Program, it's still a TennCare program, and they are also subject to renewal and redetermination. So this is really important. If you are senior or disabled and are on a Medicare Savings Program or work with these populations, even though they don't have kind of the traditional TennCare health insurance, this is still going to affect them. And if that program is terminated, then TennCare will no longer be helping them pay their premiums. So as I stated, this process began in March 2023, and they're going to continue to review eligibility each month for about a 12-month period, and this will last through April 2024. So the first question is, how will I know when my TennCare will be renewed? The answer is that you can check your renewal date through the TennCare Connect, which is like their online portal. And this portal will tell you when your household renewal date will be. The second way you can find out is some medical providers who take TennCare can also look up your renewal date through TennCare's online lookup program. So if you're wondering about this, you can ask your medical provider, and they may be familiar with how to check this information for you. And we've put the link to the TennCare Connect online portal in the chat. So as I spoke about before, the renewal procedure is that many of the TennCare households, not all, but many are going to receive a paper packet in the mail. You can also view your packet or print it if you go to your TennCare portal at TennCare Connect. This is what a packet will look like. As you'll note, it's not just a standard envelope size, it's a full-size envelope. And then effective in June 2023, in green letters outside of the envelope, it will say important letter about your TennCare inside.
All right. So as we've discussed, not everyone is going to get a packet. So if you're on TennCare and you haven't gotten one yet, don't panic for a couple of reasons. One, we're still fairly early into the 1 year plus renewal timeline. TennCare is only looking at approximately 80,000 enrollees per month. And they've broken that out across the 12-month timeline. The other reason is that some households are going to be able to be renewed without having to fill out the paperwork in the packet. And Emma alluded to this earlier. The Department of Human Services, TennCare, coordinates with other state and federal agencies, and they get some data about people who are enrolled in other public benefits programs. So the Department of Human Services, which administers the food stamp or SNAP program, they share information with TennCare. And if a household that gets SNAP assistance has recently updated their income, their household composition information, their address, and all of that matches with what TennCare has on file, and the information shows that that household is eligible for TennCare based on that recently updated income, TennCare may be able to just approve that family or members of that family for TennCare for another 12 months without having to reach out to them directly to fill out the packet. It's important to know that you would not be terminated from TennCare through that auto process, what's called an ex parte process. So if TennCare does not get enough information from the SNAP program or from Social Security or the IRS or whatever other data set they're looking at, they can't just stop your coverage. They still have to send you a packet and ask you to update your own information before they can take the next steps towards stopping your coverage. The most important thing that you can do as a TennCare member, particularly if you have moved within the last 3 years, since that pause on disenrollments during the pandemic started, is to update your address directly with TennCare. This is because you maybe haven't had occasion to interact with TennCare in the last 3 years. They may have an old address on file for you. You can update your address through the TennCare online portal, which we've linked in the chat. You can also call the TennCare Connect hotline at 855-259-0701 and update your address directly with them there. I know some folks may think, well, you know, I've recently spoken with my managed care organization, so that would be Blue Care or Amerigroup or United Healthcare, the company that is listed on your TennCare card. Well, I know, you know, you may think, well, they have my current address because I'm getting statements from them. It's best practice to go ahead and make sure that TennCare itself has that most recent address for you. They should be coordinating with the managed care organizations to update addresses, but TennCare is the one who is sending out the renewal packets, not the managed care organization. You want to make sure that they have the right address on file. All right. Other communications from TennCare, in addition to the renewal packet, which will be sent by mail and will also be available on the online portal. TennCare is required by the federal government to reach out to members in more than just one way. So they can't just send the packet. They need to try to reach out to you in a few different ways to make sure that you're aware of the process and that you know that you need to participate in the process, so that you are checking your eligibility, providing the information they need, and hopefully maintaining your coverage. So TennCare may send you text messages if you have opted into texting. Those texts will come from 862273. Email addresses from TennCare will come from this address, notifications@tcmessages.tn.gov. And incoming calls should come from that TennCare Connect hotline number, 855-259-0701. This may be helpful just, I know folks are wary of answering calls from unknown numbers, justifiably skeptical of unfamiliar texts or emails, but be aware that some of this may be coming from TennCare and it may be a legitimate email or call to update you on your renewal process. So what are your options for completing and submitting the packet once you've received one, if you've received one? Once again, you have the option to fill it out through the online portal, which we've linked in the chat. Another option is to go into one of the Department of Human Services, DHS, county offices in your area. We understand that all of the DHS county offices will have a kiosk set up in the lobby area where you can access the TennCare online portal via computers set up there. You should also be able to access a phone to call the TennCare Connect hotline. They've told us they will have scanners available so that you can scan your paper packet and it will be sent directly to TennCare for processing. You can also ask the DHS county office workers for additional assistance. If you choose to complete the paper packet and return it by mail or by fax, you should know, number one, there is no prepaid postage on the return envelope for the renewal packet. You will need to pay that postage yourself. Additionally, we recommend sending that certified mail return receipt requested so that you have proof that you mailed it and that they received it. Unfortunately, that costs some additional money to mail things that way. If you fax it, that may also cost some money depending on your access to a fax machine. The number is there. The advantage to a fax is that you will have a fax confirmation receipt that you can and should hold on to prove that you submitted that and the date that you submitted it. Once again, you can drop it off at the DHS county office and either scan it or have the DHS workers assist you in submitting it. You should ask them for a receipt when you're there. When you receive the packet, you will have 40 days from the date on the letter inside to return the packet to TennCare. That 40 days includes mailing time. So you want to make sure that you're not mailing it off on the 40th day. It needs to reach TennCare by day 40, starting from the date on the notice. You have 20 days to return any additional documents that TennCare may ask for. And that's 20 days from the date on the letter requesting that documentation. Again, that may be a pretty tight timeline given current mailing time. So if you don't receive the letter asking for documents for 5 to 10 days after it was mailed by TennCare, you've got to turn around, gather those documents, get them back within the 20 days. So be very mindful of the deadlines. Like the packets, documentation requests from TennCare, you can respond to them by submitting those documents through the mail. Once again, we recommend that you send them certified mail with a return receipt requested. You can submit them by fax to the number listed on the previous slide. You can upload it through the TennCare Connect online portal, which we've linked. Additionally, you can upload verification documents through TennCare's mobile app. And you can drop off those documents in person at the DHS office. Once again, if you do so, ask the DHS worker who assists you to generate a receipt for you so that you can prove you submitted those documents on that date. So what happens if you're found ineligible for TennCare? Well, first, we want you to know that before TennCare stops your coverage, they have to screen you for eligibility in every coverage category. So if you were previously eligible as somebody who was receiving breast or cervical cancer treatment, and you are now in remission from breast or cervical cancer, you may still be able to keep your TennCare. For example, if you are the parent of a minor child, that minor child is in your home, and you're a low income. So TennCare would not, they're not allowed to just look and see, oh, do you still have breast cancer? No, let's stop coverage. If they find that you're not eligible in that category you were in before, they need to check for any other eligibility categories. If it turns out that you are not eligible in any category, you will get a letter telling you the date your TennCare coverage will stop. So what to do then? It's entirely possible, it is likely, it is going to happen, that TennCare is going to make mistakes in determining eligibility through this process. If you think TennCare has made a mistake and that you should still be eligible for TennCare, even when they've said you are not eligible anymore, you can file an appeal. You can ask for your TennCare coverage to continue until a decision on your appeal is made. You can file an appeal by calling the TennCare Connect hotline, and there's also appeal paperwork on the TennCare website. You want to be sure to file those requests before the deadline in your termination letter from TennCare. If you feel that you've been terminated from TennCare in error, you can also call us here at Legal Aid Society. Here's our 1-800 number that will connect you with any one of our 8 offices, and we can evaluate your case to see if this is something that we can help you with. We've also linked the instructions for how to file a TennCare appeal in the chat. It's also very important to know that even if your TennCare ends, either because you did not return the packet on time or you were not able to provide the documentation they asked for, that you still have a chance to reinstate your TennCare coverage. There is what's called a reconsideration period. That period is 90 days, starting the date after your TennCare ended. If you get your renewal packet in and/or the documentation that TennCare asks for within 90 days, and TennCare looks at that documentation and approves you for eligibility, your TennCare will be reinstated back to the date that it was terminated. In other words, you'll have no gap in coverage in that situation. So, if you lost your TennCare because of a paperwork issue and you are within 90 days of the termination date, go ahead and submit that information to TennCare. They are required to review it again and start your TennCare again from the date of termination if you're found eligible. If it's past the 90 days, then you don't have the benefit of that reconsideration. However, we want everyone to know that you can always apply again. If you think that you're eligible for TennCare, you can submit a new application. TennCare is required to make a new determination about your eligibility. They can't say, well, we just looked at it 4 months ago and you weren't eligible, you have to wait. You can submit a new application. If you're found eligible, you'll get insurance back, either to the date on your application or potentially as long as 3 months before that, depending on what coverage category you're in. It's important to know that TennCare does have 45 days to process a new application. So you would not be able to get that TennCare insurance right away. If it takes them longer than 45 days to process your application, you can file an appeal. You can also contact Legal Aid Society about that kind of issue. Another important thing to know is that for folks who are no longer eligible for TennCare, particularly because they now have a little too much income to be eligible for TennCare, they should be referred to the marketplace, the health insurance marketplace. For folks who are not familiar with that, that is a place to purchase private insurance through an Affordable Care Act or what's sometimes called an Obamacare plan. Most people need to be between 100 and 400% of the federal poverty level to get financial assistance purchasing a plan through the marketplace. There are some exceptions to that. We'll get to that. But it's important to know that TennCare should be connecting you to the marketplace if you're found ineligible for TennCare, just to make sure that you don't have another affordable option for getting health coverage from another government source. That's another reason to go ahead and answer phone calls because you may be getting a phone call from someone at the marketplace that phone number may not be familiar to you, but don't be alarmed if you get a call from the marketplace after you lose your 10 care. 10 care is supposed to be connecting you with the marketplace in that way. There is a special enrollment period for people who are losing their 10 care coverage between April 1st of this year and July 31st of next year. Um, that's because some people may not learn for several months that they've lost their 10 care. And we see that sort of situation play out fairly frequently, unfortunately. It would look something like this. Um, Maybe 2 years ago, you moved. 10 Care was not aware of your address change. They sent the paperwork to your old address. Maybe they didn't have a current phone number on file for you either, so they weren't able to reach you another way. And because you didn't return the packet, they terminated your coverage. But because you didn't receive any of that mail, you didn't know that until you took your child to their annual pediatrician well child visit, and the billing person at your pediatrician's office said, "Oh, your 10 care is no longer active." Um, if you discover that within 90 days of termination, you're going to want to try out the reconsideration period. But if it turns out that you're no longer eligible for 10 care, you may want to look into applying for a marketplace plan. For most of the time, in order to get a different health insurance plan, you're kind of time limited. It's usually about 60 days from when you lost your coverage. There's some special flexibilities this time because they recognize that some people may not learn for several months that they've lost their 10 care. So for this next year, if you lose your 10 care, you can go on to healthcare.gov or work with a health insurance navigator to apply for a marketplace plan. Once you submit the application, you have 60 days to go ahead and pick a plan. So you can sign in anytime during that period after you discover that you've lost your 10 care. They're not going to bar you from enrolling in a plan just because it's been several months since that 10 care ended. I was referring a moment ago to the premium tax credits, the financial assistance that helps people purchase marketplace plans. Because for most people, it's simply not affordable to pay for all of your own health insurance out of pocket, right? So the Affordable Care Act recognizes this. There are provisions to provide financial assistance upfront to offset the cost of that private insurance. Um, you have to show, in order to qualify for these premium tax credits, that any private insurance, let's say employer provided insurance that's available to you, costs more than 9.12% of your household income. I wouldn't worry too much about figuring out what that number means. Go ahead and apply and then sort of see what happens after that point. It's also very important to know that some non-citizens can be eligible for assistance purchasing a marketplace insurance plan, even if they're below that 100% of federal poverty level. Um, that's because the Affordable Care Act recognizes that there are certain non-citizens who are not eligible for 10 care because of their immigration status, but they're still low income, they still need access to health coverage. If you would be eligible for 10 care, but for your immigration status, you can potentially get assistance purchasing a private insurance plan through the marketplace. A great resource to get help with that is our statewide program called Get Covered Tennessee. You can find them online. They have staff who assist people in a number of languages. They will work with people over the phone, online, and in person, and they help people do these applications for the marketplace. In summary, we want the folks that we work with and the communities that we work in to know that 10 Care renewals are happening for everyone who's enrolled in 10 Care. If you have 10 Care, most important thing you can do is make sure that TennCare itself has your correct address. Open all mail you receive and answer calls from the numbers that we provided. If your TennCare is denied, remember that you have options. You don't just need to walk away. You can file an appeal. You can request reconsideration within 90 days of the termination, and you can also reapply. You can also call Legal Aid Society to see if we can evaluate your situation and help you. And we'll stay on the line for just another minute or so if anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Allison. So we do have one question, and it is, if you appeal and your appeal is denied for the first time, should you go ahead and appeal again?
Unfortunately, you really only get, kind of one bite at the apple with an appeal. If you file an appeal, there's a process that you'll follow. TennCare will review your case. If they think that there's a reasonable dispute, they'll assign it to an administrative judge or an administrative law judge. You'll be given the opportunity for a hearing to present your arguments. You'll be given an opportunity to get a representative to speak for you at that hearing. That could be a professional representative, like one of the staff at Legal Aid, or it could be somebody that you trust in your personal life who you think would be a good advocate for you. Once you have that hearing and a decision is issued, you can, if you don't like the outcome of that decision, you have some additional options within the appeal process. You can appeal the judge's decision to a higher level of judge. You can ask somebody appointed by the agency to take a fresh look at it. You can ask the judge to look at it again and make a new decision. You can also ask a court outside of TennCare to review the decision that's been made. But once there's a final decision, once you've kind of exhausted all of the options within that chain of the appeal process, then the decision is final and you cannot simply file a new appeal about the same issue.
All right, well, it doesn't seem like we have any more questions, so we just wanted to thank everyone for joining our presentation this evening. As Allison said, we just want everyone to know that if your TennCare is terminated, there you have options. That doesn't mean you can never get TennCare again. You can always reapply, you can file an appeal, or you could request reconsideration. And if you're having issues and need assistance, then please call Legal Aid and we will see if we can help. Thank you.